Alright folks, so here we go. Alright, I'm trying out yet another slight twist on the rig, mostly with my OBS setup this time, so maybe some bumps as usual, but then, you know, what would one of my live streams be without a few bumps? So, I did actually stream last week to nobody, as I kind of thought I was all set up, and it turns out I needed to hit go live, so I kind of messed that up, but it does mean that I made a little bit more progress on our Mega Gargant off camera. Apologies for that. So I kind of made some decisions about what parts I wanted to use. I got a little further on the assembly, and just generally a little bit more progress. But there's still plenty more to do. I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of cleanup and the like. We're also going to do some sculpting. In particular, what I want to get done today is turn this net into an actual bag. Hradoth in the story, he has a bag that he actually puts Yagle in initially, and it's big enough to hold Yagle, the dead farmer, and a cow. And it gives the impression that there's other stuff in there already. So I want quite a sizable sack for this to feel right. The netting provides an excellent hand, which would be a lot harder to sculpt, and also gives you the starting form for the body of the thing. I may also get on to starting to sculpt or fill in the detailing and attach Yagle as well. I kind of looked through some parts that I had, bits that I had from my Gloomspike Gits army, and found myself a Squig Mangler Rider, Squig Rider. But let's start off with the putty that we're going to use. So the this is probably familiar to a lot of you. This is green stuff. Comes in two parts, yellow and blue. You mix them together, you get green. And this may be a little less familiar. This is epoxy clay. This is an excellent sculpting material, but it actually has some water solubility to it, similar to milliput. But it's a finer texture than milliput. Milliput has these kind of fibers in them, which can be a little annoying for sculpting purposes. So the reason that I have all of these different types is I like some of the properties of green stuff, and I like some of the properties of epoxy clay. I think these might actually be brand new pots that I've not had much. I've used them a little bit, but virtually new. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do equal parts green stuff and epoxy. So each of these four elements is going to have a quarter of the overall volume, roughly. I'm not big on precision, as those who know me can testify. So what we're going to do is we're going to mix up that stuff. Oh, too much stuff around here. I've got all of my sculpting and such around, so we're going to mix this up, and then we're going to let it start to harden so that we can then work with it a little bit more easily and it's not so tacky. I'm going to need probably quite a lot of volume, but remember that each of these is going to be a quarter of the overall volume, so don't go too crazy. You can obviously mix more. In this instance with the live stream, it's going to be a little bit annoying because if we have to mix more, it means I'm probably not going to get the whole thing on live stream. And there are plenty of other things that I can do with any excess. So I'm going to hopefully get this spot on, but if we have a little too much, it's not too bad. If we have a little bit too little, it's going to be a little bit annoying. I'm not going to lie. But oh, this stuff has gone hard. I keep these things in the freezer in the hopes that they'll kind of stay good for longer. I'm not entirely sure I actually do that. I will warn you that epoxy is actually a little bit more pricey than green stuff and can be a little bit harder to find as well. So just as a heads up, but if you're looking for it, it is epoxy clay, A-P-O-X-I-E, which is very difficult to say and infer the spelling when you're expecting to hear epoxy. Alright, I am going to have to get a little aggressive with this stuff. I think I've got just found a brand new unused X-Acto knife I didn't even know I had, so that's nice. I really should check my sculpting. I keep all of my sculpting stuff in one box, and the intent is like this is like shapers and things like that, rather than the good enough shapers and the like, rather than the cutting, sanding, filing tools that I use for assembly and clippers and the like. So I've got a little bit more green stuff here than epoxy, but that shouldn't matter too much. I probably should have mixed 2 parts and then 2 parts rather than mixing all 4 parts together, but we'll figure it out. Eventually they'll all cross bond and polymerize and do that hardening malarkey, and apparently I'm going to be getting most of this on my fingers. The blue stuff on green stuff, the blue part of it is actually a lot less tacky than the yellow stuff usually, but it seems like it's all coming off on my fingers. The epoxy sculpt in general is quite a bit less tacky and a little bit easier to work with, I feel. Also, if you're really getting precise with this, especially if you're just using green stuff on its own, if you use a little bit more of the which way around is it? A little bit more of the yellow than the blue, you'll get a slightly brighter green, but it holds detail a little better, I find. One of the reasons for introducing epoxy sculpt as well that I haven't mentioned is it's sandable, which is a nice feature when you compare it to green stuff, which really doesn't sand very well. It doesn't quite harden enough, and it tends to tear if you try filing it down. But there we go, that is some green stuff, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reach over and grab some parchment paper. Set that down on there so it doesn't pick up any crap and doesn't stick to anything as we leave it be for now. So, having done that, we are going to context switch. We're going to go into a little bit of cleanup here. So I've got some sanding twigs. I wonder if I might crack out my brand new, completely unused X-Acto. Why not? Chunky boy. I gotta remember my camera is a little further back than it usually is, so I'll try and move up so that I'm on screen a bit more. So we're just gonna carve away anything that stands proud, that's super prominent. I'm going to be a little bit more tricky than I anticipated because my fingers are quite tacky. Just give them a quick rinse with some water. So those of you on the live stream, if you want to throw in on chat, let us know that you're here, let us know what you've been working on, all of that good stuff. I love to hear it. I always enjoy seeing and hearing what other people have been working on lately. So yeah, please jump in on there and join the conversation. I will have half an eye on it as usual and probably miss any of the really intriguing comments because I get distracted. So quick clean with the knife and then a little bit of a sand. This is a fairly fine grit. I'm not using any of the more aggressive sanding twigs that I have, because they'll probably remove the material a little bit too quickly. Some sprue goo here that dried proud in kind of a lumpy fashion. So I'll just kind of do a rough first pass at removing the excess, and then smooth it off with the twigs, which is what they're there for. Try and get a nice smooth flat finish. Make sure it can't be picked up by your fingernail at all. If you wipe it clean, it should be virtually invisible. Occasionally you may have to retouch, add in a bit more sprue goo something, or sand down past the original surface level can also work. Remember, if you really want the sanding, the bond to look seamless, you want your sprue goo to be a little thin, just to help it flow into the cracks when you're applying it on that subsequent stage. For the initial bond, again, if you've got too thick of a sprue goo, it interferes with the ability to dissolve the materials that you're joining, so that can impact your ability to actually assemble. You may have to go back in and try again with it. I actually had that issue just recently on a bolt action tank that I've been working on. It can be a little bit annoying if you're not expecting it, and as with me, halfway through a game of bolt action, the bottom half of your tank drops away as you try and pick it up. So just doing a rough pass here. Now if you really want to get into these crevices, what I'm using is I'm just angling the sanding twig so that it kind of gets in there loosely, and these are not going to be super sharp recesses, so that's fine, but you can get needle files. I'll pull out an example here. This is a good one. This has got a square cross section. I'm not sure I'll be able to line it up quite right. You can almost see it there. Square cross section, which means it's got nice sharp 90-degree angles there. You can get ones that are even more acute angles if you kind of shop around a bit. As I said on the live stream that never happened, it's actually better to use a duller knife for scraping like this versus carving away as I did on the other side. The reason for that is that a sharp blade has a tendency to skip across the surface, and you kind of get these lines along your scraping edge. I'm not sure if they'll show on camera, but I am actually trigger refocus. This might be. That's too close. Okay, that's not going to refocus that close up. But I did actually have a little bit of that problem there. You can kind of solve it by switching to the not sharp edge of the knife and scraping with that. I find that the fatness of the blade can sometimes be an inhibitor there, but it does give a smoother clean when you're scraping. And the nice thing about it as well is it works pretty well if you just go back and forth because of the shape of it versus an actual fine point where you want to angle it so that it doesn't accidentally cut in. Okay, so there we go. Gonna need a little bit more to fill in the gap there. Apparently I didn't do a very good job of cleaning up the sprue contacts on this either. It's probably moving faster than I should have been. Right. Now I can use a slightly coarser stick. Still not a very coarse one. I have a couple that are significantly coarser than this, but this curved surface with the filaments sticking out. It's just awkward enough that I don't really want to try and get the knife to run along it. So I'm going to sand it if I can. Because these are based on foam, you can also kind of apply some pressure to give some curvature. Do be careful if you do that though, because what you'll get, you can see it here, is these little ripples in the... I should probably refocus again. These little ripples in the sanding, which are a little annoying to work around, but yeah, it can be useful just for smoothing out sections like that. So I think that is looking pretty good. Pretty good. There's a couple of areas I would probably like to retouch if I can. I might go back and do that off camera just to, things like this, fill the gap that's there and do it over, but it's not a big deal right now. You know what, thinking about this actually, what I'm going to do is I am going to bulk out the bottom of this. I did actually have the bottom part of this piece ready to put in there. I think I actually want to just bulk it out with some quick milliput. Milliput I often use for this kind of purpose. Yes, the joys of crinkly paper. I often use milliput for this purpose because although it's not a very fine finish, it is quite cheap relative to the other two, at least for me. So having it just bulk out stuff where it's not going to eventually be seen is kind of handy. Nice big bit there. Similarly big bit there. Ooh, this is going to take some working. Yeah, one of the difficulties with working with large quantities of this stuff is kneading it is very, very awkward. Apparently gets it all over your fingers as well. Once it warms up a bit, it's a lot easier to work. As I said, I keep this stuff in the freezer, the understanding that it kind of inhibits its, or extends its life cycle, its usable life. But does mean you have to get it out a little bit in advance of using it, otherwise you're going to kind of run into trouble. I'll often, especially with the milliput, I'll often just keep one packet out that I'm kind of using on the go. There we go. You can feel how much warmer, well, you can't, I can feel how much warmer it is now, which is useful. It's, as you can see, it's a lot more malleable. Right, I think that should do it. So I don't need to worry too much about this stuff because it's just going to be bulking this out. So I'm just going to pop it straight in. Kind of fill out the form. I could just put a solid lump and just whack it straight in here. The reason I'm not doing that is this stuff should harden up pretty well, but if I start filling it chock full, it's going to add quite a lot of weight to the model, which is going to cause issues potentially for joining the hand to the arm. The arm is already on the model, but that could also weaken. and probably most importantly of all, it's just going to off balance the whole thing potentially. So what we need to do now is figure out, oh no, that's the wrong arm. Other foot, other hand. Where on earth is the other arm? The other arm is here already. Okay. So gonna have to start considering the posing of all of this. Grab some one second. And back again. So we are going to grab some epoxy glue. Epoxy glue, what am I talking about? Some sprue glue. It all the way around. Set that on there. Just prop him up so that it's not applying pressure to it. Okay, I am going to do a little quick cleanup job on here. There's definitely some seams here that I'm going to have to refill with sprue glue, but for the moment it should be okay. Let's clean the worst of the mold lines. Okay. And the other foot looks quite a bit cleaner already. I'll just quickly dab on both of those together now. The interfaces here are smaller on this end, so I'm just going to work on these rather than getting glue everywhere. Big toe into the middle. Go, and the other one. Now I may end up reposing later on, but if I do, what I'm going to do is take the model as is and then cut parts of it and resculpt and reshape those joins as we proceed. While I'm at it, we might as well quickly clean up. Here, man, I really didn't clean off any of these mold lines or sprue connectors. Should have done that. So another useful trick when you're trying to sand somewhat a precise area, with these sanding twigs you can run it along your finger without any problem on the white foam piece. It's going to get a bit rough if you do it on this sanding, but then you can use that to brace yourself and give yourself some precision rather than just have the whole thing kind of waving and rocking about. It's a little bit harder to do that with kind of metal files or the like, but or just, you know, rolled up sanding paper, but with these twigs it's kind of convenient. Okay. I think there's going to be a piece that goes over the back of the hand here, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. Not entirely sure what that piece is going to be yet. I suspect I will probably change it from what the kit comes with. As I mentioned on the first stream, I'm probably going to do a bunch of silvery Sigmarine shields, maybe some Lumineth shields, to kind of give it the sense that this guy has mostly been in like order areas. That the impression from the story is very much these are kind of settled lands that the Gits are roaming through, and there's the farmer and his you know, his land that you meet Yagle on at the beginning. So I think that's going to be more appropriate than a lot of the kind of chaos themed gumph that the kits actually come with. And you know, it's a war stomper is kind of muscle for hire for any faction really, right? So it shouldn't really matter too much. No. Just quickly goop 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 goopity goop 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 goop. Okay. There we go. Fits in nicely. So yeah, there we go. Mostly complete. On last week's stream, if it had existed, you would have seen I got the hood for him, but I'm leaving it off for simplicity with airbrushing, basically. This I'm going to be airbrushing basically the whole thing in flesh tones and then sorting out the fabric afterwards. And then the hood, I can kind of get a nice good color on that. I know the GW official version has a black hood on them for the Gatebreaker. I'm probably not going to go that way. Wow, actually, already with this amount of milliput on it, it feels almost as heavy as the whole of the rest of the Gargant, so this is going to be interesting. We want a little bit of dynamism to the motion. Feel that movement as we go. So, but what I am noticing is that this is already kind of leaning in the wrong direction. All of the weight for this is going to be at the lagging the motion. He looks like he's kind of swinging it around with the angle of the bag and everything. So I'm going to reflect that, I think, a little bit more in the contents being a little bit further behind on this. So we'll go with that. Now I'm probably working faster here because of the live stream than I normally would. I'm in a normal context, I'd actually probably stop here, let this harden before I proceed and bulk out any further, because I don't want this to just rip away from thing. But we're gonna try our luck here. Now I need a container for water. So when working with milliput, one of the nice things is the water soluble nature of it, so you can kind of just use this to smooth it and hopefully get it to kind of form around these shapes to give it a better bond. Again, I'm being stingy with all of this because I don't want to add too much weight if I can possibly help it. So also, unlike I just did, you probably want to try and leave it at one wet finger, one dry finger, just because you can't really reverse that decision once you've gone and soaked your finger very easily without going through endless quantities of paper towel, which I, genius that I am, do not have readily to hand right now. Already thinned the wool here a little bit more than I would like. Okay, definitely set that down. I actually just dip my fingers in some water and clean them off a little bit. Starting to get very tacky. Clean up my workspace now that I'm not sanding. I would normally not mix a session of sanding, filing and cleaning with sculpting. You're just going to end up getting little bits of plastic mixed in with your putty, which is not ideal. What I am going to do now, I think, is kind of, it's a awkward position to be in because I want to be able to adhere the model to the adhere the hand to the arm, but at the same time I kind of don't really want to take the time to let it dry so that I can keep going with the sculpt. So just smooth that up a little bit. Oh, I will almost certainly go back in and clean this up further once it's fully assembled. Normally I would strongly prefer to have all of the parts properly cleaned in sub-assemblies and clean them as I assemble, just to keep really nice clean interfaces. This guy is so big, I think I can probably get away with treating it in this little bit more lackadaisical manner. Yeah, it's going to be significantly easier to get the feel of this whilst it's assembled. What I probably should have done is consider breaking it off afterwards, so that assembly is going to be a little bit easier to do. Oh, yeah, rushing too much. Oh, that's what happens. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do anything about this except possibly reversing all of these decisions completely. We will see. With the putty at the bottom also still being soft, I'm not even really able to kind of prop it easily. So we are into full-on pray that this just works mode, which is always the best place to be when you are hobbying. We'll see how that goes. So whilst we are mid-prayer for that, what I'm going to do is please don't break. Okay. So I'm going to grab another piece, and I'm just going to kind of... Oh boy, this hardened up fast. Alright, how are we doing on time? We are a little further into the stream than I thought. That would be why. Okay. Normally I leave this for about 20-30 minutes before I start working on it. We're more like 40 minutes now, which is going to be a little tough. But the advantage of getting to this point is that you can sculpt much more easily without stuff sticking left, right and center. One of the really important things to learn when you are sculpting is to do things in stages, in parts, in pieces. Doing so, you are going to be able to get a lot further with your sculpting. You know, trying to, and this is in two parts, right? Trying to sculpt a full person in a single go is not going to work well. Even trying to sculpt a whole sword at 28mm scale in single go is not going to work well. You probably want to build up the blade, let that fully cure and harden, and then next up build up the cross piece and maybe even the handle. Let that set. But in addition to that, you also want to do stages of your of each piece of green stuff, right? So you mix it if you are trying to adhere it to something already. You mix it and then kind of put it in position, maybe rough out the shape, and then you're going to let it cure a bit, and then you're going to start sculpting in the details, and then you're going to let it cure a bit, and if you're sanding it, you probably want to wait until it's basically fully cured before you sand it. This is still a little thicker than I would like. That's better. Now, I don't need this to be a completely even flat layer. If I did, what I'd do at this stage is I'd put guides along and roll along those guides until everything had smoothed out to that thickness. But this is going to be a pretty rough and ready sack, so this is still thick. Okay. So what you are seeing here is I've sandwiched my green stuff between 2 layers of parchment paper. As you can tell, it doesn't stick to the parchment paper, and it means that you don't have to worry about your roller sticking to the green stuff. This doesn't work if you're trying to put a texture into it, obviously. The parchment paper would obscure that pretty badly. But it does a pretty good job for just roughing stuff out. So we've got that ready to go. Now we need that bit of milliput, which is also starting to harden quite a bit. With this milliput, I'm gonna just try and rough it into shape. It's difficult to see here because the camera's so focused, but what I'm doing is I'm eyeballing to this piece to form up what I'm hoping to get out of the material, so that I can then kind of position it in, hopefully just wet it out and let it form up. As you can probably tell, probably not from that angle, but I definitely don't have enough green stuff to do this full thing, so I'm probably going to end up doing this piecemeal, which I should have been doing anyway. Trying to mock all of this up in a single go is not the best of ideas. There's just too much going on here for it to work well. So I really want a good volume on this. Problem is, any pressure you apply is reducing the volume of the sack. Having it a little lumpy is no bad thing, because it gives that added impression of actual things inside of the sack, and we can smooth it over a little bit as we go. So I'm going to leave that there, and with this piece I'm going to focus on the top end of the sack and hope that I don't break the milliput as we go. I'm not going to be able to do much more than that on this live stream, so what I'm trying to do here is feel out the best orientation to put it on. I want to be able to wrap it around, but also cover as much vertically as I can. So I think on that basis I'm going to start up here, wrap that around like that, and go like that. Now I'm not too worried about what the bottom part of this looks like. I'm going to fix that up later. But what I do want to do is just smooth out this seam a little bit here. And we're probably going to apply another layer over this. I might continue this sculpting, actually, considering how much there is still left to do on next week's live stream. If you'd prefer that I just do this off stream and come back to the next stage beyond this, which will be kind of the detailing and figuring out where to put all of the extra details ready for painting, let me know. Let me know either way on the comments whether you'd like more sculpting or moving on. It's going to be helpful for me. So there we go. We've got a nice thin layer. One of the things that I'm going to have to do is sculpt in ripples to show that the bag is kind of scrunched up in his hand. So we're going to have to put in some fold lines as we go. Fortunately, the netting in the bag, whilst that's a problem for this kind of surface, actually helps us a little bit here, because it gives us a direction where we can kind of put in those creases. I'm just keeping the layer of water on the sculpting tool, just so that it doesn't stick to the green stuff, which is a known problem. And the arm is giving out again. I may well have to re-glue this after the stream. It looks like that's lost adhesion. Yep. Well, unfortunately, that repair solution loses a lot of detail on that I'll have to try and fix up later. Be careful about doing what I'm doing here on the back of my hand to remove the excess. It will potentially hurt your skin if you do that. Even this may not actually fix it. I may have to properly go back and redo this, maybe even add pinning, just because of the weight of the green stuff already. We'll see. All right. So whilst I'm just sat here holding this, I thought I'd kind of start wrapping things up. As always, thank you for joining me. You know, please do consider liking this if you enjoyed it. Oh, just as I'm about to wrap up the stream. Hey, Aaron, it's good to have you on and join. Yeah, I kind of keep these to an hour as much as possible. We're a little bit under that, but I'm at that point where I'm not going to be able to do much beyond holding this to glue it. Too much, trying to do too much too quickly with sculpting is a bad idea. I will probably try and pick up this sculpting in the next stream so that we can kind of get more of an insight into, you know, how to add detailing and things like that. This is a very basic, giving yourself a structure to work off of, and we'll kind of keep it going from there. But yeah, you know, if you enjoyed this stream, please like it. Please add in comments, let me know your thoughts, your feedback. I'm hoping at some point in the near future I can improve my sound quality, because I know that's not great. If you feel like this live streaming would be better hosted on Twitch, let me know that as well, because I have been considering it. I've not taken the plunge yet, but if that's a more popular source, then do let me know. But yeah, please do consider subscribing. Subscribing, liking, commenting, all of those things really help the channel, help this channel grow, encourage me to do more posts. I've already filmed the next few weekly videos, and they're all scheduled up to go. The one I did this Monday gone is me muddling my way through my first ever 3D printing with a resin printer, which was fun to do. Shooting quality is not great because it's not where I normally film. The lighting is pretty bad, but it was an experience. And the next one up is also going to be about 3D printing, and the one after that is going to be about decals, which I really encourage you to check out. I think that's a great little tutorial that I have there. So just teasing those a little bit for you. But for now, thank you folks for joining. Please, check out some more of my stuff, check out the affiliates, that kind of stuff. And I will be back with more Mega Gargant goodness next week, I hope. Slim chance I may have a conflict that it means I can't make it, in which case I'll probably try and shift it a day if I can. But yeah, thank you all for watching as always, and later days.